Hi, this is Ryan Neal from the USA offices of Neal's Saddlery and Harness CowBoy sewing machines and high-tech sewing machines. And today we're going to be doing a featurette video on our CB3200 machine. We're going to show you some of the maintenance points, some of the operational points of the machine. We're also going to discuss how to thread the machine and also how to wind a bobbin on the sewing machine. So this will be part one of a three-part video series in which we discuss all of those features. So what I'm going to show you how to do right now on the machine is we're going to start out with threading the machine, and I'm going to show you how to adjust the forward and the reverse stitch on the machine, as well as throwing it into reverse as well. So we're going to have the camera pan back and forth so they can get better angles so you can see more closely on how to thread the machine. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to stand up here and we're going to show you how to get this machine threaded up. So the first step is you want to take the thread from the thread stand, just install the thread on the first cone of the thread stand. From there you're going to bring it up through the hole on the top mast of the thread stand, and then from there you're going to go to the first threading position on the machine, which is right here. There's two holes in this post. Generally what we recommend doing is just using one of the two holes. You don't want to use both of them. Now sometimes if you have a certain demanding sewing application where you're using a very heavy thread and a very heavy needle, you can use both of the holes, but generally for most sewing, this is a size 277 thread that we're using. For most sewing, we recommend that you just use one hole right here. So from this hole position on the first thread mast, or for the first threading position on that mast, we're going to go to the back of the sewing machine, and you'll see that there's a small eyelet right here. We're going to go ahead and run the thread through the eyelet right here, the pigtail spring, and then from there we're going to sandwich it down over top of these discs. And again, I'll repeat that action so you can see. We're just going to push it down in between the discs. We're not going to wrap it around the disc. We're just going to push it down in between the discs. And then from there, we're going to come to the back of to the middle of the sewing machine here, where the primary tension is, and we're going to wrap the thread around 1.5 revolutions around the primary tension. So I'll repeat that action again. So we started around with 1 full revolution, starting on the back side of the primary tension. And then we'll wrap it around another full revolution, and then we'll bring it around another half. So it goes 1.5 times around, not a complete second revolution, but 1.5 times around. From there we go over top of the little peg that's sticking out here to the left-hand side. We go over the top of the peg, and then from there we go through the hole that's in the thread take-up lever, or thread take-up spring rather, the thread check spring, which is right here. So we put it through that hole from back to front. And then from there, we will go up to the big thread take-up lever. This is the big chrome lever that slaps up and down when the machine is sewing, and we'll thread that hole again from back to front. And then what will happen is you can double check the operation of the thread check spring, that as you pull on the thread check spring will move up and down. Okay, so that'll show you that the check spring is working properly. And then from there, we're going to go down to the little pigtail spring that's down here at the bottom of the cover. So we're going to thread that pigtail spring from top to bottom. And then from there, a lot of people forget this step, and so it is very important. From there, where the needle goes into the needle chuck, we're going to thread that hole from top to bottom, so that so the thread's now going through the hole that's in the needle chuck. And then from there, we're going to thread our needle from left to right. And on an industrial sewing machine, you can put the needle in any which way but loose, but there is only one correct way. And for those of you who have watched our CB4500 operational and service video, we talked about it in that video as well. But there's a long groove on the left-hand side of the needle. It might be very difficult to see from the camera angle. There's a long groove that runs the entire length of the needle. And on the other side of the needle, there's a flat spot or a cutout that we call the scarf. And so what you want to do is when you put the needle in the machine, you want to shove it up in the hole as high as it'll go. And I'll see if I can get our camera to pan around here to the front. And you'll see that there's a small reference hole right here. When the top of the needle touches the top of the hole, then you know that the needle's installed in the sewing machine as far as it'll go. And so you want to orient it in such a manner that the long groove faces to the left, and then the flat spot or the cutout faces to the right. And then you'll thread your needle from left to right through the sewing machine. And the reason why you want to do that is so that the thread is shielded, and I'll see if our camera can get a close-up. The thread is shielded by the view, or shielded by the groove that's in that needle, and so that when you're sewing, that protects the needle and it protects the thread from breaking. So from there, the last step after you thread the needle from left to right, that's from the outside of the sewing machine to the inside of the sewing machine, the last step is you'll pick up on the presser foot and you'll put the thread down through the hole that's in the inside presser foot right here. And then in order to be able to pick up a bobbin, or to pick up the bobbin thread on the sewing machine, what you're going to do is you're going to turn the needle all the way down, and then you'll turn the needle all the way back up. And you always want to turn the flywheel when you grab a hold of the flywheel, you want to turn the top of the flywheel towards you as you turn, so the direction of rotation will remain the same all the time. And then you'll pull up on the thread. You'll see that it's separated now into the top thread and the bobbin thread. And so we'll split those two threads apart into two separate threads right here. So that gives you a rough idea on how to thread the top of the sewing machine. And now we're going to talk a little bit about how to thread the bobbin. And you'll notice when I was picking up the bobbin thread, I had taken this cover off the sewing machine. This cover is here for your protection. A lot of times when you're sewing different types of material, you have a tendency to let your pinkies dangle down when you're holding the material. So you want to make sure that you have the cover installed, because you don't want to get your fingers stuck in this shuttle race. Trust me when I say it's a very unpleasant experience. So what you want to do when you take this cover off, if the cover is normally installed in this position, and you'll see that there's an arrow that points to remove, and then there's another arrow that points to set. To remove it, you're just going to twist it this direction and you'll pull the cover straight off. To install the cover back on the machine, you're going to twist it the opposite direction, and that sets it in position. So that shows you how to take the cover off and put the cover back on. Now to change the bobbin thread, what you're going to do is you'll notice right here on the side of the sewing machine that there's a small tab, and when you change your bobbin thread, you want to make sure that your needle's in the highest position. That orients it in such a manner that you'll be able to see this tab very plainly. And what you can do is just push out on the tab, and then you'll push that tab this direction. And so what will happen is the bobbin is spring loaded, so you can see as I let go of the bobbin wants to pop out of the bobbin case, which is what we want. And so from there, we'll just simply remove the bobbin from the bobbin case. Now, once you have a freshly wound bobbin, what you'll do is you'll take the bobbin off the bobbin winder. You'll hold it between your thumb and your index finger, and you'll pull on the thread as it comes off the bobbin, and you'll see that the bobbin will spin in a counterclockwise manner. And I'll see if our camera can get a close-up on that so they can see the bobbin spinning. The bobbin is spinning this direction in a counterclockwise manner. So to install the bobbin back into the bobbin case, all you're going to do is insert it so that it spins in a counterclockwise direction. Then I'll have our camera pan down here a little bit closer so we can see. You'll see that there's a small slit on the back side of the bobbin case, and what you'll do is you'll put the thread down through the slit, and then you'll pull very hard in a downward direction, and you'll see then the thread gets wedged underneath this plate, and it comes out from where those two amp pincher apparatus are at, and there's a small hole in between them. So you'll pull it down, straight down underneath the plate and out where the amp pincher apparatus is, and then you simply pull it back shut. And then generally what we like to do is trim the thread so there's around 6 or 8 inches of thread hanging out of the bobbin case. And then from there we can just proceed to pick up our bobbin thread again, and I'll let our camera pan back so they can see what direction I'm turning this wheel. So you want to grab a hold of the top of the wheel and turn the top of the wheel towards you, and do it in one fluid motion so the needle goes all the way down and all the way back up, and then you'll notice that it picks up the bobbin thread. So that's how the bobbin thread is picked up on this particular sewing machine. Then again, you'll reinstall your front cover back onto the machine, and so now you're ready to start sewing. So the next step I'd like to talk about is how to adjust the reverse mechanism and how to adjust the stitch length. On the CB3200, some of the earlier machines did not have the numbering system that was on this machine, but it still works entirely off the same principle. You'll see on the plate on the front of the machine, there's an F down at the bottom that stands for forward, and then there's an R up top which stands for reverse. And there's also a numbering system that's on the plate, a numbering scale. And basically, these numbers don't mean anything. They're not stitches per inch. They're not millimeters per stitch. All they are arbitrary numbers to show you the position of the dial where it was versus whatever the setting is that you'd like it to be at. So in order to get a smaller stitch, what you'll do is you'll turn the small adjuster knob in a clockwise direction. That has the effect of tightening it. That forces the ram closer to the plate so that you cannot put this handle down quite as far. And so you'll see then the reference point went from a 10 all the way to a 6. So that tells you that the stitch is going to be smaller. Now to increase the stitch length, what you're going to do is back off on this knob, back off on this dial, and you'll turn that in a counterclockwise direction. That allows you to force the ram down farther, down towards the forward section, and that's going to give you a bigger stitch. So in order to be able to put the machine into reverse, all you have to do simply is slam the lever up as high as it'll go, and that throws the machine into reverse. And whatever the stitch is in forward, it will also match proportionally in reverse. We do calibrate these machines to make certain that the forward stitch does match the reverse stitch. So when you're in the reverse stitch, if you're ready to go forward again, you simply slam the lever all the way back down. It works a lot like a gear shift lever on a car does. So when you're ready to put it in reverse, slam the lever all the way up. When you're ready to put it in forward, you push the lever all the way down. If you want to have a smaller stitch, you'll turn this knob clockwise, and that'll give you a smaller stitch by virtue of not being able to push the ram all the way down. If you want to have a larger stitch, you'll turn this adjuster knob counterclockwise, and that'll give you a larger stitch. And then finally, once you have your stitch adjustment calibrated for whatever you want on this particular machine, there's a set nut that tightens up against this particular adjuster nut right here. So that set nut holds it in place, which makes certain that it's not going to move during the stitching operation. So this is a brief introductory video on how to thread the sewing machine, how to change the bobbin, and also how to put the machine into reverse. If you have any additional questions on this machine, or if you would like to purchase this machine, please feel free to contact me directly. My name is Ryan Neal from the USA offices of Neal's Saddlery and Harness CowBoy Sewing Machines, and I can be reached at area code 330-692-1418, and I do thank you for your time today.